Hi, in this video I'm going to be talking about the best diet to partake of when you're going through breast cancer and its treatment. First of all, I'd like to say I am not a dietitian. There's a lot of information out there that's available. Some of it's really good quality and a lot of it's based on myths. I'll cover a couple of those at the end. But in general, what we want to do in our life, whether we have breast cancer or not, is eat a balanced diet with as few processed foods as possible. You've probably heard the expression shop on the outside of the grocery store. That's where the fruits and vegetables are, and the meat, the protein, nuts, that sort of thing. So in general, we'd like to avoid the middle part of the store, whether you have breast cancer or not, where there's a lot of processed food that has a lot of salt and a lot of sugar and a lot of other things. Sort of when people mess around with food, it tends to be less nutritious. Nutrient-rich foods, one easy way to think about them is that they're colorful. So having a colorful diet as opposed to a white diet of macaroni, pasta, that sort of thing, tends to have more nutrients for us. If you can, err on the side of whole grains as opposed to highly processed grains. That can be really helpful. Again, what you're trying to do is get a natural source for all the vitamins and minerals you want. We try to avoid taking supplements where, again, food and micronutrients have been processed and handled. We don't know what's in them. Many supplements have been tested and found not to have what they claim to have in them at all. So basically you're having chalk. And food is a natural source of those vitamins and minerals and hasn't been messed around with by human beings. If you can have grains, I did want to say some people can't because they can't tolerate gluten. There are other ways to get whole, fibrous foods. If you can have nuts or legumes, that's another good way to get a lot of micronutrients and protein. If you are not a meat eater, there are, of course, other ways to get protein that you probably know more about than many people who are nutritionists because you become an expert in it. What I'd like to do is talk briefly about soy, so tofu, tempeh, and other forms of soy. It looks as if dietary soy is safe. So soy that you're eating as part of a healthy diet to get protein and nutrients and get a nice full feeling, those are not highly processed powders or shakes. I think when we turn soy into powders and shakes and try to increase the level of anything in our body beyond what our diet would give us, with few exceptions, it's probably not the right thing. On the other hand, there's actually no data that supplements of soy are dangerous for you. So if this is a way that you get your protein and taking this away from you would be a hardship, I don't think you should feel bad. This is one of those myths that we hear over and over again. It's kind of interesting. Soy contains plant estrogens, and that sounds bad, right? But remember, tamoxifen, which is one of the most powerful drugs against breast cancer, is also an estrogen. It just works differently from our body's natural estrogen. It sits in the estrogen receptors. When we think about soy or plant estrogens, what we don't want to do is have such high amounts that they are so-called pharmacologic amounts or drug levels of soy. Again, there's not a lot of evidence, but at least theory would support dietary soy is fine. First of all, it's nearly impossible to avoid. If you see any food that's been touched by humankind, you'll notice that it contains soy when you look at the ingredient labels. So making yourself a soy avoider to the point where it makes you mad is not in your best interest. But similarly, spending a lot of money at health food stores on soy shakes and powders is probably a waste of your money. I'd much rather see you, having a nice meal out or fruits and veggies. As you may know, during breast cancer treatment, your appetite will wax and wane. when you have chemotherapy, it can alter the taste of foods that you once considered your favorites. So unless you're trying to develop an aversion to chocolate chip cookies, I would say avoid your favorite foods during chemotherapy. You'll develop some negative associations, and save those foods for when you're feeling good. If you are trying to develop an aversion to chocolate chip cookies, be my guest and go ahead and have those during chemotherapy. You may notice your taste change to the point that foods you never liked, you're now craving. I've had vegetarians crave a hamburger after their chemotherapy, and they don't feel guilty when they have it because, after all, you're going through breast cancer and its treatment. And similarly, a lot of people describe meat as tasting metallic. So you might find yourself a former steak lover, not wanting to have steak. A common food that people like in place of red meat is fish. A lot of people who eat fish find that the taste is quite appealing. It's mild, put a little lemon or lime or other citrus on it, and it can be quite delicious and helps with that metallic taste that you get. Next, I'm going to cover some things, some additional tips that you can put in your information bank regarding foods that you would like to eat more of. It actually may be more helpful, now that I think about it, to talk about foods to avoid. So one thing to avoid in general is alcohol. We used to think that alcohol was good for the heart in modest amounts. Recent, really compelling data have suggested that there's really no benefit of alcohol, even to the heart. So even if you have a family history of heart disease and you've been advised to have a glass of red wine with dinner, that's actually gone away. Does that mean you can't have any alcohol? No, it doesn't. It's just you want to be really prudent about having moderate amounts of alcohol. What we recommend is a very small pour, alcoholic serving once a day, and no more than that. So what I mean by that is 3 to 5 ounces of wine, not 5 to 7 or 9, or a second glass. Now, of course, there are special occasions, and who am I to take those away from you? But really, in general, if you want to be taking the best care of yourself for lots of reasons, you'll want to use alcohol in moderation. We have another video about alcohol and how to find help if you'd like help reducing your intake of alcohol. Other things to avoid if you're getting chemotherapy are spicy foods or very crunchy foods. You might find that that irritates the mucous membranes of the mouth. One of the biggest things people hurt themselves on are Doritos. I'm a Doritos lover, but you probably yourself have the experience where you eat one and you can feel it scratch your esophagus. That's a very common problem, so you'll want to avoid foods that are pointy or sharp, and like I said, spicy, because your mouth may be more sensitive. We see mouth pain, severe mouth pain, like really meaningful mouth pain, in about 1 in 20 people. So it's not everybody, but if you're one of those people, I think you'll be inclined to avoid those types of food. What about red meat in general? We try to avoid more than 1 or 2 servings of red meat a week in terms of heart disease, atherosclerotic disease of the heart and the brain. And we have lots of alternatives. There's poultry, there's fish, there's the notion that you can make your meat your side dish and make your vegetable, your grain, the center part of your meal. And that's one way to reduce your intake of red meat. Again, I'm not going to tell you can't have red meat. The other thing that's pretty clearly associated with cancer, and not cancer of the breast, but of the stomach, which is increasing in incidence throughout the world, is charred food. So if you like to grill your food, you'll want to remove the char if you can, that dark crunchy part. But again, in moderation, pretty much anything is okay. So those are the things to avoid. I talked about avoiding highly processed foods. One thing I want to mention is smoothies can be really palatable. Ice cream with Ensure is a way to get calories in if you're worried about how much you're eating or not eating. Many people during breast cancer treatment actually gain some weight because they tend to exercise less, move less, they're not doing errands, people are doing that for them, they're not walking, if they're taking time off work, they're not going from the parking lot into the office, etc. And if you're worried about weight gain, just mind the size of your portions and try to get outside every day for some movement. It doesn't have to be, the hour that you used to do, but a couple 10-minute exercise stints, and that can just be walking, can be really helpful. We do have a video on movement during breast cancer and its treatment that we'll link to below. I've covered a lot. If you have any questions, just drop us a comment below. If you'd like to learn more about your particular breast cancer treatment options, the things that might be offered to you as part of your treatment plan, visit yerbba.com for your personalized report. And if this video was helpful, click like and subscribe. What that does is it helps YouTube help people just like you find our videos.